So tell us, first of all, what Generation Z is.
Yes.
And then what I'd like you to do is talk about how they're different from the millennials, because I think there's often a view that they're somewhat the same. And then, and what does this mean for employers looking forward to their workforce?
Well, first of all, I think you make a very good point. If we look at Gen Z like we look at millennials, we've got it completely wrong. I really see such a stark difference between the two groups, especially based on the data that we've seen. And one thing I wanted to address your point too about kind of thinking differently and thinking in a fresh manner. We've got to look at identifying and then delivering the ideal experience for our customers. And I think especially as we look at the changing demands and expectations, not just from Gen Y, but now Gen Z, they're going to expect something completely different. So we need to rethink everything that we're doing. And actually, there are not a lot of times in industries or in business when we can really step back and do this. But you think about it, it's what's happening here with us and the interest level and the optimists that we have in the room. It's the changing demographics and ideas that people have, and it's the technology. And those three things coming together gives us this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to really rethink the experience we want to deliver to the end user. So it's quite an exciting time for all of us to be part of this industry. And I think as we look at Gen Z specifically, as I said, they're very different. So what makes them different? Well, we mentioned technology. I think that's kind of a lot of people laugh about technology, and you made a good point about being digitally native. And this is really the first generation that grew up with an iPhone in their hands. Wow. I can't go to a restaurant without seeing a 2-year-old watching a video or playing a game, and probably knows how to use the iPhone better than my parents do, and maybe better than some of us. So who here in the room is a parent of a Gen Z? So we've got a few. And so I'm really curious to get some feedback if what our research says really resonates with what you're seeing. So they're tech focused. And I'll give you a few stats which make it really interesting. You have about half of Gen Z people saying that they are connected 10 plus hours a day. So they're connected on their phones, their iPads, their computer. 10 plus hours, that's half of them. So they're always connected, basically. The next stat made me laugh. You've got about 53% of Gen Z workers who say they'd rather give up their sense of smell versus to give up their iPhone. Wow. That's crazy. Wow. I mean, just imagine that half of people say, I would actually willingly give up a sense of smell, sense of taste, whatever it might be, because I am not letting that iPhone or that iPad go. So we just have to think about technology is part of their DNA, basically. It's part of their lives. So you've got that, and they're using technology to evaluate, to make decisions. We talk about Uber, we talk about Tinder. It is quick. It is rapid, and it's got to be accurate in their minds. Next, they're more career-focused than your Gen Y or your millennials. So where a lot of employers think, and I have a lot of data that shows this, that your millennials are a bit lazy in the workplace, and that's just what the data says. I think I've seen a lot of different examples of it, but that's what a lot of employers think because they're working and thinking differently. Your millennials now, or your Gen Z, they're coming back with a much bigger focus on work, on being successful. That's actually driving what their satisfaction will be. They're also feeling more pressure from their parents. So parents in high school are saying early on, you've got to be focused on what you're going to drive toward to get your professional experience. So what college you choose, what after school activities you're involved in, how is that driving toward? So you have a different set of parents which are driving then different mindsets within your Gen Z students and ultimately workers. They also are highly entrepreneurial, much more so than other generations. So they want to be small business owners. So they either want to be really successful in the workplace, and that means something different. It doesn't always mean being CEO of a company, but it's about driving change, driving good, making me as a Gen Z feel good about what I'm doing because I'm also driving some social change. So with that career focus comes a different view of what success looks like. And they also want to work for, work with, or buy from companies that do good. So they're socially minded. They themselves want to do good. Many of them volunteer, much more so than previous generations. They also want to work with companies that do the same. So it's not just about doing it, it's about showing it and demonstrating it. And if we as employers don't do this, we're actually going to get left behind with the talent that Gen Z will offer us. They're also savers. I don't know about you all. When I was in high school, I was trying to think about how to get gas money and how to go out to the movies or whatever it might be. These kids, it's amazing what we're seeing. They want to save money. If they're given $500, many of them are going to save the money. They realize the value of that. So it's interesting as we put all of this together. They're socially minded, they're career focused, they also believe in their skills and what they're doing, they're tech focused, they're savers. This is going to inject a very, very different worker into the workplace. And their expectations, and we'll talk a little bit about that today, but their expectations are very different too. And also, consider this last point. 65% of Gen Z individuals entering school today will take a job that doesn't exist today, or go into an industry that doesn't yet exist. So we talk about rapid and significant change. It's happening. So we talk about, there's no one size fits all for consumers or for benefits or for employers. This is especially true with these folks who have just a very different view of the workplace, a view of themselves and their skills and what they want and they demand for companies they work with, work for, or buy from. So we are talking, it's really just kind of, strap yourselves in with the seatbelt and get ready for a wild ride, because this is happening. And you're going to see in the next 3 years, Gen Z is 10% of the workforce. So very quickly, they just entered the workforce last year. 10% of the workforce in a few years. It's going to grow more and more and more. And they have very, very different views. So it's exciting, but for those companies that don't change their mindsets and don't evolve with technology and don't think digitally first, it can actually be disastrous for them.